Hello, Leo. Welcome to the Plaid Sheep Oracle. Your reading today is complex and deep and symbolic, and I'm going to do my best to make it clear. And we'll see where we go together. I'm recording this in early August 3rd, and we are approaching what some people like to call the Lion's Gate, or the 8th of the 8th, around the heliacal rising of Sirius. And what that means is that Sirius will become visible and not blocked out by the sun. Sirius is currently the brightest star in our sky, although it's not going to remain that way. And Sirius is actually a binary system, Sirius A and B. But it used to be Canopus, and after Sirius it's going to be Vega, and then Canopus again, as we precess. So there's a lot of talk, and I don't know if I want to use the word controversy, about the idea of the Lion's Gate. Call that because we are in Leo season. Sirius is actually part of the dog constellation Canis Major. And it's where we get the dog days of summer, because that's what the Greeks called it. After Sirius's rising, we entered the dog days of summer. And the name Sirius comes from a Greek word meaning glowing or scorching, because it was at that time already the brightest star in the sky. And then for the Egyptians, it was a signal that the Nile was going to flood. So there's a lot of symbolism and mythology around Sirius. I actually don't think that I would call it a portal. I would call it a season, a space, an energetic time, when we can talk about things becoming visible for the first time in a while, about waters rising, about the cycles of things, about symbolism, about mythology, about language. And all of this is kind of present in this reading. We start with this abracadabra card, which is less, abracadabra is relevant, because that is about speaking, spell work as the spoken phrase. So about language and how you use language, both verbally out loud to other people in order to make yourself understood, and also how you speak to yourself. But then there's this whole star thing going on in the background. I spent some time, sort of examining this sky, and I don't know if it's actually real, if she used real constellations in the back, or if she sort of made them up, to fit kind of the visual, the proportions of the card and having stars in the right place for this figure. But this idea of the stars and the constellations and their symbolism and how we see them and how we choose to put things together. You know, we bring certain stars together into a constellation, but they're not static. Different cultures have had somewhat different constellations. So how do you choose to put things together? And how do you see that image? You know, do you see a dog or do you see something else? And this kind of personal versus cultural symbolism as well. We are born into a particular culture, and that culture has symbols, a symbolic language. And that may include, you know, not just constellations, but colors, for example. Here in the West, white is associated with weddings, and in China it's red. White is associated with mourning. But then you yourself may have particular associations with white that are yours, or associations with red that are yours. And thinking about all of these things. And then we have this Seven of Swords and this crow with the moon as a watch. So natural time in opposition, or well, not in opposition, but in as seen next to mechanical time, the, you know, sort of societal time. And the nuances of all of that. You know, and society at the moment, and I don't know, maybe it's not just at the moment, but it seems really so much now that everything, that it's kind of all or nothing. You know, that it has to be, we only rely on facts, or we only rely on, you know, our feeling about a thing. That there's a sense that it has to be all one thing. Always this. We have to be absolutely on clock time, or we have to absolutely ignore that all the time and just do what feels right. So this duality that is absolute. And then there's this feeling of the trickster, both in the crow and in the Seven of Swords, which can be, you know, someone playing a trick, someone manipulating or fooling. And I was watching actually a different reader's reading today. And an oracle card that came up was one called Trusting the Trickster. And in the card it talks about how you don't, you know, how you have discernment. But I actually took it as, in fact, trusting the trickster god, trusting, allowing that trickster energy. Trusting that the trickster has a message. And then there's this Relics of Lemuria card, which came out yesterday for Virgo. But today has a completely different meaning. And here this is about the idea that the waters will rise. this signal association with Sirius for the Egyptians. Now, the heliacal rising, when it happens for you, depends on what latitude you're at. It's actually already occurred for the Egyptians. Cairo's at about 30 degrees north latitude, and Sirius would have become visible for them on about August 1st. But if you live in Rome, which is at 42 degrees north, it won't be until August 12th. And if you live really far north in, say, Norway at Oslo, which is at 60 degrees north, this rising won't occur until September 3rd. So again, this sense of perspective, where you are, how you see things, your particular point of view as in juxtaposition, perhaps is the word I want. I don't want opposition. In juxtaposition, in relationship to how others see things. So another kind of thing about Virgo's reading yesterday is that there were several tens. This sense of a finish of something. You, on the other hand, have several aces. And we're going to talk more about that. So the first underlying is this night of inspiration. This firework exploding and creating movement, like a signal. This light of Sirius being a signal. And the star comes out below that kind of as an added confirmation of this notion. This signal of Leo season. And it's kind of interesting because astrologically, we're actually in kind of we're in a really, lots of planets are retrograde. And starting on August 23rd, Mercury will be added to the list of retrograde planets. So Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and Chiron are all retrograde. And then on September 4th, the day that Venus goes direct, Jupiter will turn retrograde. So there's a lot of retrograde energy, except for Mars, who's not going to have a retrograde. He is just steaming ahead. So how this all fits in for you and for us as a group. This Leo Aquarius energy happening that's also associated astrologically. Venus is moving retrograde through Leo, and Eros is moving retrograde through Aquarius. They had an opposition recently that's now separating a bit as Venus starts she'll move faster. So there's all of this sense of this and that. But at the same time, there is this new thing energy. And very definitively in this card, there's this pointy bit that feels very much like sort of sticking this into the ground, planting a flag. We are beginning. We are beginning. Something. You are beginning something, Leo. In spite of the retrograde energies, something begins. For you. I wasn't sure if this was going to turn out to be, when I first laid it out, a collective reading, but I'm going to say that it's not. That this may not be true for everybody. But that if you came here to this reading and you're still here and you're sort of feeling it, that something has begun for you. And then we have another sort of serious reference here. And this does feel like a portal, but it's more that you are creating an opening. You are creating a passage. And that this bright star, your star, your personal brightest star, is now coming into view. So it may be that up until this point you've been having trouble knowing kind of where to go or what to do, or like, the things have been hazy, that you could kind of, right, you could kind of feel whatever this was. You know, maybe you've been spending a lot of time meditating, contemplating, communing, divining, all of these kinds of asking energies. And there are, as I said, several aces on the board. Except for the Ace of Air. And yesterday when I did Virgo, it was the 10 of Pentacles that was missing from the 10s. And finding it, for me, right, going and finding it in one of the decks was relevant. So today when I laid out your cards and saw that the Ace of Swords or Air was not here, I went looking for it, but it didn't have quite the same result. In fact, what I realized is that I was hunting for it. You've been hunting, searching, chasing this Ace of Air, this Ace of Swords, this, right? What is the idea? What is this new thought? What is it? Seeking it. I mean, even here in this card, this page of emotions, which is, you know, kind of the following of the heart light, there is this sense today of seeking. Like you've turned your light on in your chest and you've been scanning, looking, searching, chasing this Ace of Pentacles, or I'm sorry, of Swords. Seeking it, chasing the wind. And this is another symbol that appears in myths. You know, people out on the ocean seeking, sailing, chasing the wind so that they can move. But it is this Ace of Pentacles, that keeps showing up in different forms. here as this growing, right? That this is planted, and then there's growing. Expanding with fortune underneath. And then we have this balance card with this goddess of the sea, a goddess who controls the waters in the ocean. And again, this sense of waters rising, of consciousness and emotion. And so what I want to say is that this chasing of the wind, the chasing of the new idea, it's not going to come through the mind. Here we have this 8 of Swords, and a really kind of heartbreaking 8 of Swords, with this figure, in the fetal position, in tears, sobbing, I think, in despair. In despair, perhaps because she can't figure it out. She wants to build something, but she can't with this, with this 3 of Pentacles. She wants to build something, but she can't figure it out. That she seems to be missing the first spark. And then there's this Queen of Pentacles, and this is your wider self. I mean, looking at you with such love and compassion, such tenderness in your struggle, in this mental struggle. And she's holding this pentacle, this single pentacle. She wants to show it to you, but you're not looking up. And then we have this 3 of Cups, which in this deck is very much about reconciliation. We have Arthur, Lancelot, and Guinevere. About reconciling parts of yourself. I often see the 3 of Cups as an internal energy, an internal space where you find unity and communion amongst all of the different aspects of yourself. The unified consciousness, unified will, in the sense of the alchemical great work. Reconciling different goals that you may have within yourself. Reconciling different ideas, reconciling that, you know, varying symbolism. You know, what red meant to your family or your culture and what red means to you within yourself. Finding that unity within yourself first. And there's this Four of Staves, Four of Wands, which, you know, this looks very much like a kind of an earnest conversation that these two people are having. They are coming together for a unified purpose. When we enter marriage, you know, and forget about any of the legal blah blah that goes with that. But the archetypal idea of marriage, of joining your life to another. You are two people. You each have your own, all of your own stuff. But you choose to come together and face the world together. And this may require some conversation. You know, possibly repeatedly, as you go through your life together, when different challenges arise. And knowing how to, this idea of language, of knowing how to speak to another, knowing how to speak to different parts of yourself so that those parts will understand. Perhaps finding the right symbol, the right metaphor for yourself. Finding the right story. There's so much here about story. You know, and stories are so important. The story we tell, with all of its parts, you know, the world building that we do to tell the story of our life, both in the past and going forward. The language that we use, the images that we choose. All of this is really important. And it can be easy to lose sight of, especially if you have kind of a pragmatic or intellectual tendency. So here is the magician, the ultimate expert, master of symbol, the alchemist, using the elements, which are symbols, right? Earth, air, fire, water, symbols for these elemental energies. So telling the story of yourself as the magician. Able to use all of the elements. How can you tell that story for yourself? And so then we have the Ace of Pentacles for the third time. This time as the sacred circle. perhaps as the drum that you might use for summoning or for shamanic journey. And also the sacred circle of yourself, and then widening out your immediate family, your community, the sacred circles moving outward. What has begun? The drumbeat has begun. And what is the symbol for you? Is it the drumbeat? Is it the planted seed that is growing? Is it, what symbol works for you? So then we have this Two of Pentacles. This balancing. But maybe you've been attempting to make the balance really rigid. That there's been a real separation for you between sacred and mundane. Maybe you've been too disciplined. I mean, the Queen of Pentacles appears again here very pensive. Inward looking. And then the Two of Swords. And also this Knight of Swords. And then the Devil. I'm going to stop there. So maybe in this, right, if we take this Arthurian idea as our next metaphor, maybe you've been on the wrong quest. The quest for, maybe you've been searching for Excalibur. But Excalibur, Arthur doesn't find Excalibur. Excalibur is given to him when he becomes worthy, when he is ready. So I'm going to say, Leo, that if you've been chasing the wind, if you've been chasing some intellectual idea, that you wanted an intellectual framework for something, that at least now, in this moment, you're not going to find it that way. Right? It's about this Ace of Pentacles, first and foremost. The embodiment of the new thing. World building. And world building here with the Ace of Cups, the traditional Grail, world building, emotional world building. World building through feeling rather than intellect. This is not, in fact, I'm going to say that although Earth, right, the Earth signs are practical, they have this practical aspect, that you want to release that. This is about story and symbol. Rather than an intellectual idea. This right? This trickstery energy is there. Not seeking for things to make sense or be logical or practical or workable or any of those words. And then maybe you have to find your own metaphor, your own story, your own myth that makes this work for you. And so then we have the Ace of Wands, the final ace. Fire. And here, this very sort of symbolic staff. There's something like not so much the new idea, but the staff of your power of office. Right? The magician's, wizard's staff. And then you appear, Leo, strength, finding your power. And there actually is a sword here in this card. And when you are ready, when the story, right, when you reach that point in the story, you're going to look up and see that sword. And then we get the Chariot. Movement forward. And another nod to Sirius. In the tropical zodiac, Sirius is in Cancer, about 15 degrees, halfway through Cancer. And Chariot, the Chariot is the Cancer card, traditionally. So being able to move, to enter the next chapter of the story. So advice, specifically. And this was a bit of a struggle. I actually had different cards here, and it just made no sense to me at all. So I did a bunch of other things. I used the library oracle to get clarity. And then usually when I lay out the cards, I'm asking Leo's energy to present itself. But then for the advice, on this particular occasion, I asked my own fellowship specifically. Please help Leo. The Leo energy itself seems unable to bring out some specific advice. So what do we get? We get the Emperor. And in this case, I mean a wolf, but a dog. For the dog star, Canis Major. The dog days of summer. The howling at the moon. Right? Wolves in story. And then there's these three cards that are all about this duality kind of coming together. First, there's this particular Two of Swords where the swords are crossed very deliberately. Although she has her back to us, I think we can say she is not blindfolded. She is choosing to bring these two swords together. And here with the Judgment card and the reflection of the swan. So the inner duality being combined, being seen. Being approached. And in both of these, there is this water imagery, the sense of the rising water. And also kind of in a nod to Aquarian energy, which we had here with the star, and also Aquarius across from you. And focusing not on the air aspect element of Aquarius, but on his aspect as the water bearer. And then the Chariot and the two horses. With the moon in the background. Coming to emotional unity of purpose. This is often an aspect of the Chariot card, that the horses seem to be going in different directions. And that it is up to the charioteer to kind of to bring them together and moving in the same direction. And here you are not the charioteer so much, right? There is no chariot. You are, by coming into emotional unity, emotional confluence. I don't know what word I want. It's not coming to me. That is what will allow the horses to move forward. If you've ever sort of watched people who work very gently with horses and earn the trust of horses, they don't go seeking, they don't push or pull, they wait. They come into a quiet space, and then the horses will approach because they feel that peace. So finding that that peace within yourself, in the sense of not having warring ideas, finding that unified will where everybody can join together to common purpose. And then we get the Four of Swords again, the coming together of all of these things to a point. To that point of focus. And then I think, that this Ace of Swords will become visible. I think that the Ace of Swords is actually here, right? I mean, it is clearly, it exists in all the decks, and I did actually go and look to find all of them. But we can see it here in this Strength card. It's simply not visible to you now. right? The trickster is in play. So they, you know, trying to use logic or reason or any of these things is just, it's not going to work right now. You know, talking about, you know, this whole Lionsgate portal serious thing logically, you know, when did it show up, and, you know, did ancient astrologers talk about it? And I was like, who cares in this moment? That is the collective out there story, and that exists, and you can know that it's there, you can acknowledge it. But for you right now, it is about your story, your world building, your writing the next chapter of the story. And you don't have to finish, right? You're not being asked to finish the whole series of books to the end. Just here now in the next, you know, the next bit forward. And be mindful about your language and your choice of metaphor, your choice of story. Does it really work for you? Does your heart sing when you think about it? Is there something sneaky in the metaphor that maybe you haven't seen before, that might actually be counterproductive, and, you know, maybe you need to choose differently? But something has begun, Leo. Something has begun. For you. So, Leo, I hope you really use this space. I hope this feels really good, and that you can have fun with this. With exploring your own myth and symbols and story. I wish you all the very, very best, and I'll see you next time. So long, Leo.